Reti Mahiri, the Planning Committee of Auckland Council. Today it is the 31st of March. Welcome to the members, the Mayor, councillors, Independent Māori Statutory Board members, our staff and members of the public attending this meeting as well. We've got a big agenda in front of us and as the members know, some 700 pages and I anticipate that we will be meeting for the entire day. So members, if we could just keep that in mind, I will firstly go to Kalinda Iswa and Kalinda will take the roll call. In your hands, please, Kalinda.
Morning, everyone. Councillor Bartley.
Morena.
Councillor Casey.
Morena, Kalinda.
Councillor Cashmore.
Present.
Councillor Collins.
Kia ora, Kalinda.
Councillor Coombe. Kia ora. Councillor Cooper.
Present.
Councillor Dalton.
Morena, Kalinda.
Councillor Filipina.
Talofa, Kalinda.
Councillor Fletcher. Mayor Phil.
Ata Marie.
Member Henare. I can see Toso. Well, Markham is present. Councillor Henderson.
Morning, everybody.
Councillor Hills.
Kia ora koutou katoa.
Councillor Mulholland.
Kia ora, good morning, everyone.
Councillor Newman.
Good morning, Kalinda.
Councillor Sayers.
Good morning.
Councillor Simpson.
Morning, team.
Councillor Stewart.
Good morning.
Councillor Walker.
Hi there.
Councillor Watson.
Hi, Kalinda.
Member Wilson.
Kia ora koutou katoa.
And Councillor Young.
Morena tatou. Okay, members, thank you, Kalinda. We'll go to apologies first, and I have received apologies for early departure on council business. Councillor Cooper has let me know that she had two community events late this afternoon or early evening that have been set in calendar for some time. She's attending. Thanks for letting us know that, Councillor Cooper. And Councillor Collins also.
Sorry.
Council
Sorry, Chair. I also said I would be gone from about 1 to 2, but maybe that will coincide with lunch.
Okay, we'll note that as well. Kalinda, if you could please note, thank you. I'll move accordingly. Councillor Deputy Chair Bartley, would you second that, please?
Happy to second, Mr. Chair.
Thanking you. Putting that motion, it's on the screen. All those in favour say aye.
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 Contrary, no.
Aye.
Contrary, no. And declare that carried. Thanks, members. Now, I'll just advise of the revised agenda for today, just so that we have some continuity on our discussion on the MPS urban development responses that we'll be dealing with under the 1, 2, 3, 4 papers today. So this is the order. We'll take petitions shortly. We'll go to local board input. We'll take the parking strategy. Then we'll take the MPSUD overview, followed by the next paper being the better quality intensification. And then we'll go to the city centre MPSUD paper. And then we will move into public excluded to discuss the MPSUD as well. And we'll come out of a public excluded to deal with cycling and micromobility. Then we'll go to thriving communities. We'll deal with helicopters in response to requests from 3 local boards. Then we'll go to a private plan change request for our Wairaka precinct. And then we'll move through to making operative a plan change of our own on rainwater tank installations. So that's the order. Just to advise that there is one paper that you'll see has not appeared as an addendum as intended, and that was a proposed council plan change for King's Seat. That's been withdrawn. It'll be considered at a later meeting. Okay, members, I need to go to item 2, and that's the declarations of interest. Are there any declarations from any of the members of this committee for any item before us here today? There being none, I'll go to confirm the minutes of our last meeting, and that was on 3rd of March. The motion's on the screen. I'll move accordingly. Deputy Chair, Councillor Bartley, would you second that, please?
Happy to see you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The motion's on the screen, members. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
I come to the contrary, no, and declare that carried. Thank you. Now we take the agenda forward through to petitions. 2 petitions have been received. The first petition is from Scotty Witherow, and this is a petition relating to private helipads on Aotea Great Barrier, particularly. And unfortunately, Scotty Witherow has not been able to attend this meeting virtually. So there is a motion on the screen to receive Scotty Witherow's petition, which has been distributed, and forwarded to the Chief of Strategy for consideration. Now, Councillor Papacoom, would you like to move that one, please?
Happy to do so, Chair.
Do I have a second, please, for this motion on the screen?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair. It's Bill.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this petition? There being not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no, and declare that carried. We have a second petition which I've accepted for the agenda, and that's from Devonport Heritage. And this relates to the protection of special character areas, particularly for Devonport and elsewhere in Auckland. And the petition comments and signatures are there on the Council Nexus for the members to look at. And now there will be just to point out to members, there is a public engagement process that we're discussing later on the agenda of this meeting. And we will be encouraging the petitioners and all Aucklanders to participate in that process. That's always was our intention, and we're managing to maintain that. So I will now invite Margot McRae, who's already joined us.
Hello, can I be heard?
We can hear you, Margot.
Oh, good.
And in your hands, Margot, for you to present your petition.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm here to present a petition signed by, just now, it's gone over to 1,800 people. They're asking Council to retain the whole of Devonport's special character area. Now, we know the government's Housing Density Enabling Act went through, although the Council was opposed to it. But changes were made that did give Council more discretion to decide where density exclusions would apply. And special character areas were specifically noted as being a qualifying matter. Now, for some reason, Council planners have decided only high quality parts of the special character areas should be protected and the rest deleted. This assessment process was outlined in planning meetings minutes from last July. So they've set a very high bar for staying in the SCA. Now, why is this measure being used? Our petitioners have noted that nowhere in the legislation does it say only high quality special character should be preserved. Now, not all houses in Devonport are high quality heritage homes. There's 1960s flats and 1980s homes dotted among the villas and cottages. But you simply cannot cherry pick out parts and exclude them. It's like removing pieces from a patchwork quilt. It will lose its cohesiveness and form. If you go down this path, the intrinsic historic value of the whole area will be diminished. Now, given the widespread change to the built environment that the Act will enable across the city, these special character areas are more important now than ever. These areas tell the story of Auckland. They chart the city's history. They give Auckland its identity. And special character areas will be more valuable left intact rather than reduced in size and cut about. If their values are to remain, they have to be protected, enhanced and managed, not built out. When you think of the low-rise open streetscape of Devonport and its waterfronts, this needs to be respected. Petitioners note that the building height and bulk is crucial to this. 3-storey developments right to property boundaries will totally disrupt this largely single or 2-storey landscape. Protecting character, people say, is about the collective strength and cohesion of the area. Picking off bits is a bit like pepper potting, which council leaders said they would not allow. Many petitioners are not even from Devonport, but they value it enormously. They can't be called NIMBYs even. But many point out that Devonport is a hugely popular visitor destination, a place they and their visitors love coming to. Not every building they see is historic, but it doesn't matter. It's the heritage landscape that impresses. One petitioner, heritage architect Jeremy Salmond, says that the council's assessment method of SCA areas by individual buildings is incomplete. It's flawed because it ignores other urban design matters which are fundamental to understanding special character. And that the presence of non-heritage buildings, he says, does not diminish the value of a character area. In fact, he believes this approach, as others do, who've signed the petition, could be seen simply as a strategy for removing houses from Auckland's SCAs. I've attached his opinion here today and I urge you to read it before you decide on these matters. The council has said in the past that it wants to retain special character. If you are true to your word, you will do that, but you have to do it properly. It means keeping ones like Devonport intact. As the comments in the petition show, many Aucklanders do not want historic areas like Devonport to be decimated. Please read them. Read Jeremy Salmond. It will remind you, I hope, that your job is to work for the people of the city and the future of the city. Thank you for giving me this time today.
Thank you, Margot. Now, members, I'm inviting questions of Margot McRae, representing Devonport Heritage and the petitioners. Do I have any questions? Just need to
Put one in the bar, Chris. Is that all right?
Okay, just going to the chat bar there. I will take you first, Deputy Mayor Councillor Cashmore, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Margot, for the presentation. Sorry about my croaky voice. The legislation was passed by virtually all the parties in the House with the exclusion of Act, and we made strong representations, which you alluded to, concerning our problems and issues with this particular piece of legislation. We have to revisit under this legislation the Auckland Unitary Plan special character areas and come up with a database justification for them. Jeremy, as you said, he does not believe it should be done on an individual house, but on a larger scale, street or even suburb basis. And Auckland has 3% of its houses are under this character areas, 21,000 houses approximately. How would you suggest we actually respond to the legislation, yet still retain as much as the character as you envisaged you would like to see retained?
Well, I think the discretion is there for the council to make an assessment, and that actually you're sitting at very high at 75%. Why don't you set it at 50%? You know, there may be some areas of the city that aren't even 50%, but why set it at 75? It's terribly high. I think it could be set at 50%.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yep.
Look, I'd like to take one question from each member, please, and if we can have it be succinct, that would be great. We have a very big day ahead of us. I'll go to Councillor Simpson next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and look, thank you, Margot, for your words and for the petition. Do you believe that it's important to go out to Aucklanders with the status quo as a start of a 10, then across all of Auckland?
You mean the status quo of the present SCAs, or
yes.
Yes. Why don't we have a choice? What, you know, we don't want to just, the council should be saying, well, what do you see as important? So yes, I think so. Exactly.
Thanks, Margaret. So I know you've just said one, so I just want to clarify that you're not just coming on behalf of Devonport. You're saying that actually right across Auckland, we should start with the status quo with regards to the SCAs for all of Auckland and go out to Aucklanders asking their opinion on that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Watson, please.
Thanks for your presentation, Margot. Just in terms of that assessment and the comments of Mr. Salmon, I noticed under the current unitary plan and Schedule 15, Special Character Schedule, there's already been, through that unitary plan process, extensive analysis and assessment of these special character areas, and not just to Devonport, but to many other areas around Auckland, including Northcote and Birkenhead. Those schedules set their own high bar for heritage protection and scheduling. Are you satisfied that the assessment that's taken through that unitary plan process and what is now in black and white in that special character schedule is sufficient to establish the special character nature of not just Devonport, but a number of other areas across Auckland, some of whom are under threat?
Yes, I absolutely do agree, and that's been through a long democratic process. Yes, these areas have been assessed. They have been assessed over and over. Devonport has got assessments back to Devonport Borough Council days. They do all exist. They went through the unitary plan process and they can be used and upheld. And I think the legislation allows for that.
Thank you. I'll go to now the question from Councillor Walker and then finally Councillor Henderson. Councillor Walker.
Yes, hi Margot. So I've listened to what you've said and also clearly seen the opinion of Jeremy Salmon. And my question goes like this. Would you suggest that if in the evaluation that we did, rather than the evaluation that was done, which I understand was not a physical site check, it was done via Google Street View, and that is public, that if all of the criteria that we have in the unitary plan that go to qualifying matter, and they include things like the historical context and the physical and visual qualities, the streetscape and the like, that if all of those things were taken into account, that instead of some locations missing out because they don't arrive at the 75% and 5 or 6, which is public because that has already been discussed, that in point of fact we would probably be close, if not identical, to what we have in the unitary plan, and that would support your contention that we maintain what we have in the unitary plan, which is incredibly well considered, and Councillor, not only that, has been through a robust process.
Councillor, you're making a statement, you're not asking a question. Can you come to your question, please?
So my question is, do you think that the analysis that we've done has been substandard as compared to the robust analysis under the unitary plan that takes into account things that might actually lift the quantity of areas that should be protected?
No, it's certainly not substandard, considering the years of effort that went into that unitary plan, that people like Devonport Heritage and others, the effort we put into it to prove the importance of these areas. It's an insult to say that those things should not be taken into account. Yes, of course, the unitary plan already has the evidence there.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Margot.
Final question from Councillor Henderson, please.
Thanks, Chair. The new law requires us to find a balance between developing to fill the housing gap and enable more homes versus protection of heritage value. If the houses discussed are low value 1960s builds, why should we draw the line at protection from development when we have a housing shortage and people living in cars?
Well, interestingly enough, if you take the 1960s brick and tile flats in Devonport and you allow them to be developed into 3, you will lose the only affordable housing that Devonport actually offers. Low-rise little 1960s flats house older people, they have rentals, they have single parents. That is the only affordable housing in Devonport. If this goes through, they will be ripe for development and turned into very, very high quality apartments for rich people. So the irony is that we will lose our only affordable housing that we've got.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Thank you, Margot, for responding and bringing your petition to us. Now, just before I conclude the questions, I just need to check. Councillor Fletcher, I think your question has been addressed, and
Yes,
you
it
will.
has. Thank you.
And if Councillor Hills moves and Councillor Fletcher seconds, the motion is before us. So thank you, Margot. The motion is there on the screen.
Seconder.
It is moved by Councillor Hills, seconded by Councillor Fletcher. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Margaret.
And I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
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 To the contrary, no, and declare that carried. I just want to pause. We're still on this item, members, because I'm actually going to ask John Dogood to address the question that primarily Margot has asked here, because there's really no other opportunity on the open agenda to address it. Now, I'm mindful of the confidentiality of the detail, which we'll be discussing later on an excluded item. So, John, would you please address the question of the that Margot and petitioners have raised about just retaining the status quo? Now, I'm mindful of all the contacts that we have made with ministers post the legislation, and I think there is a Ministry for the Environment guidance note that came out after we continued to pepper them with questions about this and other matters. And that guidance note is at attachment A on page 281 at the back of the city centre paper. John, can you just take us through the removal of special character by the legislation and the council's intention to reinstate it as a
Excuse me,
qualifying...
Mr. Chair, can I bring a point of order up?
Yeah, can you name the point of order, please?
Yes, I'm just wondering whether you should listen to all the public forums on this issue before you ask for staff advice.
Thank you. And I'm asking for the staff advice now on the back of the point that Margot McRae has made for her petitioners. Sorry, that isn't a point of order, by the way, Councillor. So I'll now go to you, John.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee and Margot. So look, I'll keep it brief. As I understand the question, it's in relation to the way in which the NPS Urban Development and the Enabling Housing Supply Act recognise or do not recognise special character. So the default position under both the National Policy Statement and the Amendment Act that went through before Christmas is that Council must apply certain new height controls within walkable catchments of certain locations and then across the rest of the urban area, which are generally more generous or more lenient than our current height controls in the inventory plan. There's no specific reference to special character in either the National Policy Statement or the Amendment Act. There are a list of matters where, for reasons of national importance, councils are essentially required to consider lower height limits than would otherwise apply under the policy statement or the Act. And then there's a category called other matters or other qualifying matters. And that's where the council does have the discretion to look at this whole topic of special character and determine, for August notification of the plan change, what is the most appropriate approach. In doing so, there is a requirement to do a site-by-site, property-by-property analysis, which has been undertaken. That's a requirement from government. There's also a requirement to evaluate retaining or applying special character to certain places against the national importance, and this is the words from the policy statement itself, of enabling housing. So we have to weigh up applying special character as a reason for limiting height in certain places against the national importance of enabling housing is what council is required to do. So the approach to date from the planning committee is to absolutely have special character recognised and applied as a qualifying reason to limit the height and density that would otherwise be required through the government policy statement and through the Amendment Act. The approach to date, as has been mentioned by Margot, is the threshold of 75% of properties within an area meeting a high quality threshold. That the approach to the methodology would not result in pepper potting, but it is an approach that would see some reduction in the special character areas if that was to go through. But maybe to make it absolutely clear, if the council was to take no action on special character come August, under the National Policy Statement and the Amendment Act, there would no longer be a special character overlay in the unitary plan. So the council is proactively at this stage proposing to apply special character to areas of high quality as a reason for not allowing the heights or densities that would otherwise be required under the National Policy Statement. So it's a proactive decision to apply special character. If the council wasn't taking that approach come August, the legislation and the policy statement would simply have those areas removed.
Okay, thank you, John. We'll take questions of John on that when we come to that particular item. And now we'll move on to public input. There have been 2 requests under public input. One was from a company, Lomai Properties, regarding their Waipupuki development. That's subject to a separate hearings process and not appropriate to be brought to this committee. And that process has not been concluded as yet. It's a matter that's subject to Environment Court appeal. The second is from Chloe Schwarbeck, the Member of Parliament for Auckland Central, regarding helipads and helicopter-related matters. I declined the oral submission, but I've accepted the opportunity for Chloe to present a written submission, and it's been distributed. I think, Kalinda, has that been distributed, please?
Yes, it's available on Nexus.
It's on Nexus now, thank you. And so we will formally receive the Member of Parliament's submission by the motion before us. Councillor Pipacoon, would you like to move?
Thanks, Chair.
Do I have a second, please? I'll second then. It's moved and seconded. The motion is before us. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And to the contrary, no. Declare that carried. Thank you, which takes us to item 6, local board input. There have been 4 requests accepted. We will firstly go to the Auraki local board, covering the national policy statement. We'll go to the Waitemata local board on helicopters,